Welcome. Tonight is just not a webinar. It is a table. And I am sitting at a desk, and it could be a coffee table for you. It could be a dining room table. It could be an outdoor table. But I want us to have this evening a really frank chat because we're at the hardest table, and some of those tables that are out there are our own tables, not the hardness of necessarily the tabletop, but the table that we sit at is sometimes a hard table. It's a hard table to sit at. So, this evening, my name is Ron Gagosian. I'm coming to you. I am traveling, but I'm in San Francisco for you this evening, and I am grateful that you are here. I'm grateful that you are with me. And so let's just jump right in. Tonight's webinar is truly and entitled Sacred Ambition, really about how your faith, and when I speak of faith, I'm not talking about any particular religion. I'm not talking about anything metaphysical, but I'm talking about a faith, and I'm talking about a mindset that is deep within you. That's really where we're at tonight. And that in it and of itself is where the sacred ambition lies. And hopefully tonight we'll be able to find some of that. We may find all of it for some of you, but that's our goal. Again, wherever you're at, let's just remind ourselves. I have my nice tumbler of fresh water here with me. I have good table, something sturdy that I can lean on from time to time. I have everything that I need. And so let's get started. So, really, I'd like to speak to you about a particular book that I read about 2 years ago. And I met the author at a convocation in Southern California. I happened to be with the president of the college, which I graduated from, down in the Santa Barbara area. And I'm just going to show you the book right now. It's called, get it up into the camera for you properly. It's a little bit with the background, can be a little difficult, but there we are. It's by David Brooks. He's a New York Times editorialist and really funny guy, very, very witty. And so I'm looking at my screen right now, so I've taken my eyes off of you. It is entitled The Second Mountain. And it's really, really a fabulous book. And it's reasonably thick. I've got some notes and things in there still, so they go with the book. They live with the book. They're flight nav. They happen to take that book on a vacation, and so everything that I had, cocktail napkins, airplane cocktail napkins, stuffed in there that were my bookmarks. So what is sacred ambition? Sacred ambition is about climbing your mountain. And as some of the things that David talks about, he talks about your first mountain in life, and he talks about what we do. We talk about the aspect of going to school. How many years do we go to school roughly? It's 12 years. It's K through 12. And then we're encouraged to go on to college or a trade school for more education. So we spend 12 years of our life really refining and grooming and hopefully finding our next step. And for some that on to college or university, you spend another 4 years. And for those of you that go on to law school, that's an extra 2 years of graduate school. For those of you that go on and get, say, a business degree, that's 2 years. Medical school, that's 4 years, plus another year or two of residency. So we're spending an enormous amount of our time as in our first mountain that we climb, just educating ourselves. And so from that, we begin to build the next level of framework. And the framework is our first mountain. And the first mountain that, so we're loading our backpack, so to speak, and we're loading that with a level of education. And then the next thing, what might that be? That's, we have to find a job. We have to go to work. And we go to work and we find the plum job out of college. And we find maybe it's not so quickly, we're waiting tables while we're going to law school, or we're going to medical school, or someone else is waiting tables for us and working while we work on our law degree or our advanced degrees in medicine or in business. And then we find our plum position. And then what's it then about? It's maybe moving out of a city, an apartment, and it's moving and buying a home or buying a complex of some kind. And then it's an automobile and it's children. And then it's the natural progress of education and their education and activities and all of that. And the next thing, and then what might next be for that? It would be their college education. And the cycle continues. And the cycle continues to the point where some of us reach a place where we're looking at a second mountain. And we're at a particular place in time now where second mountains don't necessarily have to be at retirement age. There's many, many, many of us who start with a particular career, or we go into a line of work, and because of one reason or another, there are layoffs, there are what they call right sizing, companies right size, which means really a downsize. So we're in a particular place in an economy, especially in the last quarter century, since about 2000, where this phenomenon really began to unlock itself and then began to really be, I would say, invasive. It was a place that now most of us, it's burned into our psyches that we're constantly looking over our shoulders and we're dreading that telephone call or your colleague coming to your office saying, "Hey, do you know about this meeting uh, at 9 o'clock this morning? You thought it was going to be a normal day at work, and now there's this meeting." Well, some of us have been through those uh, moments, and some can be terrifying. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about right sizing and downsizing and layoffs. What we're here to talk about is your sacred ambition and where that meets. So, David Brooks, funny guy, very witty, brilliant man, a great writer, a student of history, massive student of history from antiquity to present. If you ever have the chance of listening to him, he speaks so eloquently of the points and times of the great men and women that have lived, say, over the course of humanity. And he just speaks so eloquently of their quotes from the Greek philosophers up through the Middle Ages, up through a lot of the figures of the 20th century, and now into the 21st century. An amazing mind and an amazing way to go about speaking and landing a point. But let's talk about less about the second mountain and more about the sacred ambition. You know, David says that we should stop asking in terms of how we begin to define our sacred ambition about what we want to do in life, not about what we are going to get, but what we are going, ready, what we're going to give. And that really begins at the heart of the sacred ambition. The sacred ambition is a foundation of not what we receive, but it is really about where and what and how, and the legacy impact of what we are going to give in this new opportunity, whatever that opportunity might be, and whatever dreams that you might have, whether you are at the age you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're mid-career in your 40s, you've begun to maybe think a little bit about retirement into your 50s, or you're moving into that transition where retirement is at hand or just a few years going to be standing at your front door knocking. And it's going to be a knock on the door. And essentially, um, as I was telling someone the other day, I said, if money, I'm transitioning here, so stay with me because there's the point. I said, if money were to show up at your front door, what would you say? How would you greet it? And the person, thought, and they said, it was in a busy restaurant, and they said, gee, I don't really know. I'd say, come on in, sit right down, let's have a chat. And a lot of us frame that because maybe we are in a place of scarcity uh, in our bank accounts as compared to a place of abundance. It could be a matter of the heart or the mind. We are in a place of scarcity in here and in here, or one or two places. It could be other places as well in terms of behavior. And so this then relates back to what it is and how we form that sacred ambition, and the sacred ambition that flows into not so much what can I get, but where and what and how am I going to give. So it is within that framework. So tonight, I want to let you know, and I want you to think, and I want you to think with me very, very much in a much needed aspect that we're here tonight together. And I want you to think specifically, since we had defined this as a table, one of the hardest places to sit at, a table, and have an honest discussion, is that am I a builder of tables or am I a climber of ladders? Am I a builder of tables or am I just a climber of ladders? And that's an important question to ask because you need to hear it, and you need to hear it framed in that manner, because we're here sitting at a table as if we were sitting at my dining room table and we're having a meal together and we're talking about life and we're sharing with one another. And sometimes in those conversations, they become hard conversations and tough questions are asked. Not so much tough to intimidate you, but they're the tough questions so that friends and just even acquaintances, if that's a safe place, excuse me, that you can share, because then you're able to gather the access to be able to speak clearly to that. So, in that whole notion of being a climber rather than being a builder of tables, as I suspect some here this evening would position themselves and identify as being a builder of tables, and some will be climbers of ladders. And recently, I read something and it really challenged me because I thought of a ladder and I thought of a ladder in a well. In a lot of our circumstances, we get put into situations, and just work with me here. It's a scenario of a ladder that is in a well. It's not a lot of water in it, maybe a few trickles, and you're not getting too wet, but the desire is you want to get out of it. It's not so much that you climb the ladder to get out, but you want in life to position the ladder in the right place. So when you do climb out, you climb to higher ground, you climb to more of a safe place. you can climb out, crawl up to the top of the well, and fall because it's the positioning of the ladder. Really, that's the point that I'm trying to make here. So as we look at sacred ambition and we look at the table in which we sit at, and we look at that question of are we identifying with being a builder of the table, or are we a person that climbs the ladder? And if we are the ladder of that, then how are we going to position the ladder against the wall of the well going up as we climb out? And is that going to be positioned properly for us? So the build here is really, I would say, it's an unconscious build. And the walls that we have in a lot of way are unconscious walls of fear and doubt. And so recently, I posted on Facebook, possibly some of you had seen it, where I climbed a 70-foot telephone pole with other cohorts in a team building exercise while I was at an event on the island of Namali in Fiji. And it was my first time to Fiji, and part of our team building group and part of those events for our first day was to win a particular group exercise, which we did. And we were the first to be on the bus that took us to the jungle area where we were to stand in line. We had the opportunity to opt out. I did not opt out. That's really the lion-heartedness in me. And so I'm standing 3 people back, and there are 4 70-foot individual telephone poles, and there are 4 groups of people, or 3 after us to my right. And there were 3 people in front of me based on how we were positioned, getting onto the bus and sort of that group. And so we chose that particular telephone pole. And we were to wait in line, and the guides were strapping on the helmets, and they were strapping on all of the harnessing and cinching it up and making sure that it was just, tight and that it was comfortable. And they made sure that everything would be ready so that one person and then the second person, so when you were ready and when that other person had finished, that the line would then progress and you'd step up. And that was the mindset. You'd step up and you'd step in line. And the thinking, the fear, the anticipation of walking out and going to the 70-foot pole and having the guide harness you in, snap you all together, and make that final assessment of your harnessing. And then you were to go stand at the pole, reach up, and about 10 feet above you, there was a red line circling the circumference of the pole. And that was the point of the red line of the point of no return. And I remember standing in line looking at that circular red painted line around the telephone pole saying, are you even going to be able to get to that point? And I'm going through the fear modules in my mind. I'm looking at the young woman standing in front of me who kept turning around smiling. And she said, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to do this? And I kept answering, yes, I'm going to do this. I said, are you thinking about not doing this? And she said, no, I'm with you. I'm in this all the way. I'm going to climb this pole and I'm going to get to the top and I'm going to stand. I'm going to make it to the top of the pole, 70 feet up. And then I'm going to stand and I'm going to balance. And then I'm going to jump vertically from my little spot on the top of that telephone pole to the trapeze bar above, swing, and then I'm going to let go. And then the pulley system would slowly lower that person down to the ground. Well, my turn. She completed her whole routine and she got up there and she jumped. She missed. I think she was just a wee bit too short, but she gave it a good try. And so she got down to the ground safely. And I took a very, very deep breath and said, "This is it." And at that point, there was no question in my mind that I was going to step out of line and not do this. I was already committed mentally that I was going to do this. This was, I knew, part of the challenge of making that multi-hour trip from LAX to Fiji and then an hour flight to this particular island on a small little aircraft, Beechcraft. So here I am standing in line, and all of a sudden, my name came up. The guide was there. They took me. The Fijian instructor made sure all my harnesses were correct. They were in place. Everything was snug. Everything was tight. And they said, "Make your move. Go." So I approached the pole. I took a big, deep breath and I just reached up one rung to the next rung. And I climbed that pole as if I was a cat. I must have felt that I had some feline kind of cat in me because I got all the way up to the top. And for particular reasons, not because of fear, but because of previous hip operation, I decided not to try to right myself to the top of the pole for fear of dislocation and such. I just decided this was enough. I had done it, I had accomplished my goals, and I moved, and the pole swayed. And I grabbed grabbed the pole tighter, and it was a beautiful view. The sun was out. I was dripping wet, humidity probably more than Florida. The humidity was probably well over 90%. And I began to think and began to overthink. So all of that time, from the time of standing in line to making my ascent, my brain shut off and the lion-heartedness came out. And now I'm at the top of that 70-foot pole. Yes, not standing on top of the plate, as they called it, but I was there. I was at the place where I had achieved everything that I needed to achieve internally because I just did it. I had created momentum. It wasn't really about the outcome, but it was about the momentum. And here I was looking at this beautiful coastline, 70 feet in the air, with this incredible jungle and jungle heat bearing down on me, with the sweat just pouring off of me. And it even made the top of the pole a bit slippery just because of the perspiration that was coming out of me. Certainly needed a good drink of water. So the guide, 70 foot down, asked me, yelled up in her Australian accent. She said, "Ron, what's your next move?" And I said, "I'm good. I'm going to rest for a little bit." She said, "Great. Not all day." And I looked down and said, "Fine." So I took another glance at uh, the coastline was beautiful. I remember that distinctly. And I glanced to my right, looking over the top of the trees. And I said, "This is it, man. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go." I could see the clock ticking down, ticking down, ticking down. And they said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to jump to my left." So here I am. And so they counted: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go, Ron. And I just pushed away. And as I pushed away, I made my way around the pole, swinging out on the rope. And I don't know what happened down on the floor level, but maybe, who knows, it was a split second kind of thing. I was rapidly approaching the next pole next to me. So I had the wherewithal, picking up speed in the centripetal force, to cross my arms, and I slammed, not head first, but I slammed into that tree. The next thing I know, I don't remember much from the time I hit the pole to the time that I'm now standing back on the grass and people rushing around me and asking me and then telling me and pushing down on me and making a way for me to sit into the wet grass. And I said, I don't want to sit down. I don't want to get wet. And they go, no, please sit down. Make a short story longer. I sit down. And I tell you this story because it really turns into be a magnificent story of an alchemy of fear, passion, drive, and what's ahead. And what was ahead of me after they bandaged me up, they sent me to a country doctor, not to the emergency. They sent me to a country doctor where he puts me up on the table. He giggles a little bit. I felt as if I was on a CIA clandestine mission and in some back country doctor's office, and probably which I was for sure. And they take me in and they put me on the table and they immediately take the bandage off of my leg. And the doctor says, I must stitch this up. So I walked out of there with a bottle of antibiotic, ibuprofen, and 6 stitches, which he did a magnificent job on my right shin. So, with that being said, the prescription on his RX, his prescription sheet said, no swimming in the ocean, no swimming in the swimming pool. And again, you're in Fiji, you're near the Great Barrier Reef, all of the aquatic life, the sea life. That was one of the reasons I was there, was to go snorkeling or scuba or learn how to at least get a certification for snubaing or scuba diving. So that was out. Everything at that particular point, I just said, wow, this is interesting. So later that afternoon, I was sitting on my garden patio. And people, some well wishers had come by my room and from my group and were asking me and looking in and seeing, asking how I was doing. And I was resting. I had my leg up, I had some ice on it. And we were getting ready for about an hour or two away from the dinner hour. And it dawned on me that my sacred ambition was not really there to go swimming, but it was what I had broken through. The wall that I had broken through was the ability to see further and to see further that my goal was not to go stand under waterfalls or to go swimming and frolic and have a good time, but that would be an anchor point. That would be an anchor point for me to be able to capitalize and begin to build my sacred ambition. And so, those of us that are here watching this, what's your wall? What is your wall that you're currently dealing with? What is it? I'm going to pause for a moment now, and I want you just to spend the few moments in this silence as you watch this. So remember where I was at. Remember that I had hit my tree or my wall. And that's a metaphor for my life, hitting the opposite direction of which I jumped. I wound up hitting a wall. What is your wall? What is the wall that potentially you can hit or that you will be hitting or that you have no idea about at this particular point because that may be an unknown to you? I like to call it the unknown of the unknowns. But I'm going to be quiet for just a moment. And I want you to think internally in the quietness of this moment. What is your wall? Go ahead and begin. A few more moments. Okay. So we're at a particular place where sacred ambition is now in action. You've begun to tap into what it is that you might be thinking in terms of a new ambition. It might be your current work. It might be a promotion. It might be some other line of work. It might be going into business for yourself. It might be a whole new venture with some other people that you've been just absolutely craving and dying in a good way to partner with them. And so you're now thinking about, there's more to all of this than just a pot of coffee in the morning and grabbing your car keys and out the door and doing that possibly for the next 30 to 35 to 40 years. And there's a lot of people that do that. Nothing against that. But for those of us who are here today, who have a sacred ambition and who are facing those walls, and I'd like you just to right now ask yourself, am I that person who's facing that wall? Am I that person who Ron is actually pointing at, sitting at a table, around the table, saying, are you thinking about a sacred ambition? Are you thinking about a sacred ambition? Are you thinking about a sacred ambition? And I welcome you to point the finger at me, and I'll answer that for you if the finger was pointed at me. The answer to that question is yes, I do have one, and I have several of them. So I'm at a particular place right at this point where if this is not really tied to my journey, but this is really now tying to your journey, there is an opportunity right now that you want to say to yourself, I am present and I'm present in motion and I'm not really focusing on the potential. I'm not focusing on outcome, but I really want to focus on momentum. And momentum is really the beginning of the start of your sacred ambition. So, for those of you who are watching this, ask yourself, am I the person that Ron is sitting around the table tonight and pointing his finger at? Do I have, and have I come to a particular place? Do you identify with that? That you do have a hidden or secret, you've not expressed it to anybody, but you've had the finger pointed at you, and we've identified potentially internally that you do have a sacred ambition. So, what's holding you back? What's holding you back? And what's that wall? What is that negative fear? What is that wall or that belief that keeps you behind the wall? Going back to the analogy of the well, you can climb out of the well. That might be whatever in life that is. You're free to climb. At least you have the blessing of being in the well and a ladder comes down and you begin to climb out. But where is that ladder going to be positioned so that it's properly positioned for you so that you can climb out and you can achieve, you can be part of, and you can actualize your secret ambition. And once those negative beliefs are out of the way and you can create the momentum of actually climbing the ladder and making sure that it's positioned properly, that really is the key to beginning beginning the ascent to your sacred ambition. You know, we're at a particular point in this webinar where we need to talk about legacy and invitation. Vision and your second mountain is really, frankly, it's about service and a covenant legacy. because it's a real covenant that you're going to make with yourself about how you're going to make your sacred ambition a reality, and how you are going to, and where you are going to, and who are going to be, who are the people that are going to be your assets to move you into into and around the table, where you will sit with either peers or you will sit with a coach or a mentor to move you once you've climbed out, and you've climbed out in a out of the well in a proper fashion, and in a way where the ladder is positioned to help you move to that sacred ambition. I'll bring my hands and put them down into the screen so you can see them. So that's really the key now. That the vision and the second mountain, it's not about what you can get, although that is an aspect, and that is a very fundamental aspect in how we deal with wealth and wealth creation and legacy impact. But it's really, really important to understand the service, who you are going to help, and how you're going to maintain that covenant when times get tough, when the going gets rough, when you don't want to get up, you don't want to do this. There's a why. And your why will anchor you into the place. If you've probably heard people say you need to make your why so big and so painful that it makes you cry. I'm not so much about the pain piece of that, but what I am and what I do attest to is that I have wept. I have wept, ladies and gentlemen, about my why. Because I did all the things that you were supposed to do. I was an Eagle Scout, a pretty good student, graduated from high school, college prep high school, went to a fabulous college, received my liberal arts degree, went on to get a graduate degree, worked for major financial institutions, led great teams, traveled the country, business trips, fancy dinners, met with top titans and chieftains of financial services, sat at the table with them, invited to lunch, have been to great meetings, learned from some of the best. But it still wasn't enough, even after I had started my companies and started my own consulting company, and then started another middle market, lower middle market consulting insights company in the financial district in San Francisco. It just wasn't enough. And so that really took me on this journey of reading David's book, meeting David, having the opportunity to talk to him. Maybe some of you are saying, well, hey, Ron, I don't have the opportunity at this point in time to meet David Brooks. Let me look into the camera on that one. That's a wall. That's a wall. And what that really means is you are consulting your circumstances. Many of us can't get through, get under, get above, or get around that wall, though, that fear, and that really it's an unbelief. That it's a belief that really is an unbelief, because we are focused on fear and we consult our circumstances more than listening to the desires of our heart, proper desires. I'm not talking about every desire. I'm talking about proper desires that you can achieve what you've always wanted to achieve in your life. And in the process, have a service, have a covenant with yourself that helps other people and designs for other people their opportunities, because you're going to help them grow. You're going to help them achieve. So if you're here today, and that was my alarm, I'm not ashamed of my alarm because I don't want to keep you much, much longer. I'm appreciative of your precious time that you have given me here today. And so, my call to you is this evening, this afternoon, could be watching this in the morning, listening to this on YouTube because it will be posted out there. And you will have that opportunity to listen over and over and be able to hear some of the finer points. And we've just discussed only a fraction of sacred ambition, but I hope that I have created a an opportunity for you to see into the aspects of what a sacred ambition really is. It's not about going to work, and it's not about starting a company. It's about the why. It's about setting the covenant aspects of the sacred ambition, about using and getting away, using your internal mind, a mindset that moves you past, over, under, around your fears and your unbelief that keep you stuck, that keep one stuck into thinking, I can't move, I don't have, I won't be able to have, I don't have because, and what you're doing, and if you take nothing away from this table time that we've had, because if you're here, you're interested in building a table, you're interested in this sacred ambition. And we'll touch more on this in the weeks to come. But I wanted us just to be able to sit here and be able to look at, say, we're at a fine dining situation and we sit at the table and we have the napkin and the glassware and the stemware and we have the tableware and the silverware and the menu, and we're at a particular place where things, people are a little they'll pick up the menu and they'll just sort of look at it and they'll put the menu down, and I'll look at this person over here and I'll look at this person over there, and then I'll pick the menu back up and I'll kind of glance, and I'm not really looking at the menu, I'm not really receiving all of the items. Maybe I saw the escargot as an appetizer, and I saw the beautiful confit salad on the salad appetizer section. And then I kind of glanced and I saw some other entrees on there. And of course, I have to glance at the desserts. So all we're doing at this point in time is sitting at the table. We're acknowledging the fact that we're at the table together. And I want you to take a look at the four to five major things that we talked about. We talked about the example of me climbing the pole. What are the walls? Could be plural. What is the wall that's inhibiting you? What and how do you consider life? Do you consult your circumstances, or do you follow? Are you someone that follows the proper desires of your heart and makes your decisions? Because that is a skill. That's not something like a light switch in the dark where you turn the light on, or before you go to bed, you turn the light off. It's not something that works that way. The way it works is a daily mindset of creating a skill that no longer consults your circumstances. And you will notice over time as you begin to practice this. So the next item that we had was the building of the wall, the ladder. Are we positioning the ladder in the right place rather than just arbitrarily in such a rush to climb the ladder, and we really get out and we go nowhere? We're really not positioned, or it could be that there's nowhere for us to get onto a ladder, to get onto a roof, or to get a foothold to move out. That's where we consult a lot of times the wrong circumstances in our lives, so we don't position the ladder properly. I really, really want you to understand that piece. And so, who here tonight, could be this morning, could be the next morning, I want you to be able to say to yourself, this is something that I want to take part of. This is something I want to take part in. This is something that I believe that I need to have because I'm looking at increasing my wealth. I'm looking at my health, my wellness, and I'm ultimately looking at a legacy impact that talks and speaks forth not so much about what you are going to get, but what it is you are going to give. And so, with that, my friends, I leave you tonight, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. Your time is just absolutely precious to me, and I want you to have a lovely time. I want, whether it's nighttime or daytime, when you do view this out on my website at gagosiangroup.com, or you're viewing it out on YouTube under the Gagosian Group. I want you to enjoy it. If there was something in any way that I can be of assistance to you, you can reach out to me through our website again at www.gagosiangroup.com. I'll spell it for you. It's Gagosian group, one word.com. You can leave us a message. You can reach out to us, and you can have an opportunity to look, and you can book an appointment, a 30-minute appointment with me, if that's an investment of time that you want to make, so that we can understand how we can drive and we can build your second mountain to the most incredible place, an opportunity for you to achieve great wealth, wellness, and your legacy impact. So for now, have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.